All right. Ready to dive into something not always seen as the most thrilling topic?
Yeah.
Compliance training.
Oh, compliance training.
But stick with us because we're going to uncover why it matters and how it can actually be engaging and effective.
Absolutely.
Because,
Yeah.
believe it or not,
Mm-hmm.
there's more to it than just clicking through slides.
You got that right. Compliance training done right
Yeah.
is about so much more than checking those boxes.
Right.
It's about weaving a culture of integrity.
Okay.
Really understanding the why
Yeah.
behind all those rules and,
Yeah.
protecting yourself and the company
Oh, yeah.
from some pretty big risks.
And I bet you have an example for us.
I do. Did you know that,
Uh-oh.
according to a recent study,
Okay.
the average cost of a data breach is now $4 million?
Wow. Okay.
And that's just the financial hit.
Right.
Think about the damage to a company's reputation,
Yeah.
the loss of customer trust,
Absolutely.
the big deal.
$4 million. Okay, now you've got my attention.
Yeah.
So it's about way more than just avoiding,
Right.
slap on the wrist from regulators.
Exactly.
Our source today actually breaks down creating a really effective compliance training program into several key steps.
Okay.
The first one is understanding the regulatory landscape
Right.
and the specific needs of the company.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like detective work, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like figuring out what rules apply to a specific organization.
Okay.
We're talking healthcare
Right.
with high pay,
Mm-hmm.
finance with anti-money laundering,
Mm-hmm.
or tech with data privacy laws.
Right.
Each industry has its own compliance challenges.
Right.
And then, within the company,
Yeah.
different departments are going to have different needs.
That makes sense.
What keeps legal up at night might not be the same thing.
Right.
That keeps sales on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes sense that a one-size-fits-all approach wouldn't work. So how do you go about tailoring the training to be truly effective?
Well, our source emphasizes consulting with those different departments.
Okay.
You have to understand what each team does,
Right.
what risks they face day to day.
Okay.
For example,
Yeah.
imagine you're developing a compliance training program for a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
They might run into situations where they're tempted to offer a bribe to close a deal.
Yeah.
So their training would need to equip them
Right.
with the knowledge and skills to navigate those situations ethically.
Makes sense.
On the other hand,
Yeah.
someone in IT might need training on how to identify and prevent phishing attacks,
Right.
which could expose sensitive data
Uh-huh.
and lead to a costly breach.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You can't just throw information at people and hope for the best.
Right.
Which brings us to the next step.
Yeah.
Setting clear learning objectives.
Okay.
So what should people actually be able to do after the training?
That's where it gets interesting. It's about moving beyond passive learning to tangible outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's take anti-money laundering training as an example.
Okay.
A clear objective would be whether employees can spot those red flags
Right.
of suspicious transactions
Uh-huh.
and know how to report them properly.
So it's not just, okay, you sat through a PowerPoint on money laundering, you're good to go.
Right.
You actually want to see if people can apply what they've learned
Exactly.
in real life situations.
Exactly. And that's
Okay.
how you measure the effectiveness of your training.
Okay.
You set those clear goals,
Yeah.
and then you can assess whether those goals are being met.
Got it.
If not, back to the drawing board.
So we've figured out the regulatory landscape. We've set crystal clear goals.
Okay.
What's next? Don't tell me it's PowerPoint time.
Don't worry. There's a world beyond bullet points.
Okay.
Our source talks about all sorts of engaging training delivery options,
Okay.
like in-person workshops,
Mhm.
e-learning modules,
Yeah.
webinars,
Right.
even a hybrid approach. Okay.
Think interactive games and simulations.
Oh, fun.
That sounds a lot more fun than staring at a screen full of text.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of gamification.
Yeah.
A little friendly competition can go a long way.
You can?
If you're genuinely engaged in the training, you're more likely to remember the information
Right.
and actually use it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
We've tackled the regulations,
Mhm.
set clear goals,
Yeah.
and even found ways to make the training engaging.
Okay.
What else is there?
This is where the why comes in.
Okay.
Our source emphasizes
Yeah.
that even the best design training can fall flat if employees don't understand the reasons behind it all.
So, like, why these rules even exist in the first place,
Exactly.
and what could happen if they don't follow them.
Exactly. Think about it.
Yeah.
If you're just given a list of rules with no context,
Yeah.
they just feel arbitrary.
Right.
But if you understand the reasoning behind them,
The potential consequences for yourself and the company,
right.
it suddenly clicks.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about avoiding punishment.
Right.
It's about understanding how our actions, even seemingly small ones,
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect.
That's it.
Wow.
It's about empowering employees to make informed decisions
Right.
and realize that they play a crucial role in protecting the company
Yeah.
and themselves.
This is fascinating. We've gone from compliance training being a chore to a powerful tool for creating a culture of integrity.
Yeah,
But I have a feeling we've only scratched the surface.
we have. There's still more to uncover.
All right.
Let's take a quick pause and come back for part 2, where we'll explore some real-world examples
I like it.
of compliance training done right.
Okay.
And maybe a few cautionary tales, too.
Okay. Let's do it. All right. We're back and ready to dive into some real-world examples of compliance training in action.
Okay.
I'm curious to see how these principles we discussed actually play out in different industries and roles.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Moving from the theoretical to the
Yeah.
practical.
Mm-hmm.
What good is knowledge if you can't apply it
Right.
in the real world?
Exactly. Our source highlights a few areas
Yeah.
where compliance training is absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And the one that jumps out at me first is cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
With all the data breaches and ransomware attacks we hear about these days,
Right.
it feels like a ticking time bomb.
It's a hot topic, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Think about that recent attack on that credit reporting agency.
Oh, yeah.
Millions of people had their personal information compromised,
Yeah.
leading to identity theft,
Right.
financial losses,
Mm-hmm.
a whole lot of stress.
Yeah.
That's why it's so essential for employees to be up to date
Right.
on cybersecurity best practices.
And it's not just the IT team's responsibility, right?
Right.
Everyone from the CEO
Yeah.
to the intern plays a role in protecting sensitive data.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen those phishing emails that try to trick you into clicking a malicious link.
Right.
One wrong click and boom,
It's all over.
the whole network could be compromised.
You're absolutely right. Effective cybersecurity training needs to reach everyone in the organization.
Okay.
But it can't be a generic one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
The content has to be tailored
Yeah.
to each person's role and the specific risks that they encounter.
So for the IT team, you might dive into the technical details of firewalls and intrusion detection systems.
Right.
But for someone in sales,
Yeah.
the focus might be on recognizing and avoiding those sneaky phishing emails.
Exactly. And to really make it hit home,
Yeah.
you could create a simulated phishing attack.
Interesting.
See how employees respond in a safe environment
Right.
and then provide feedback and guidance.
Okay.
Or you could use case studies of companies
Yeah.
that have suffered major data breaches.
Yeah.
It's a powerful way to drive home the point that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
Those are great ideas. Cybersecurity is definitely a big one.
It is.
But what other areas are top of mind when it comes to compliance training?
Another area that's incredibly important, especially for companies operating globally,
Okay.
is anti-bribery and corruption.
Okay.
The rules and cultural norms can vary widely from country to country,
Oh, yeah.
which can create a minefield of potential compliance risks.
Yeah, the stakes are high too. We've seen countless examples of companies facing massive fines and, irreparable damage to their reputation because of bribery scandals.
It's true.
It's not just about the financial hit. It's about the erosion of trust.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's why effective training in this area needs to go beyond simply outlining the legal requirements. It needs to delve into the ethical considerations
Right.
and help employees develop a strong moral compass.
So how do you make anti-bribery and corruption training engaging and impactful? It seems like a topic that could easily devolve into a dry lecture on rules and regulations.
You're right, it could, but it doesn't have to.
Okay.
One effective approach is to use real-world examples,
Yeah.
case studies.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you could discuss a case where a company paid bribes to win a government contract
Okay.
and then faced severe penalties.
Yeah. That would definitely get people's attention.
Right.
It's one thing to talk about abstract rules,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to see the real-world consequences
Yeah.
of violating those rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could also present hypothetical scenarios
Okay.
and have employees discuss how they would handle them.
Yeah.
For example, what would you do if a foreign official asked for a facilitation payment to expedite a permit?
Interesting.
These types of exercises help employees develop critical thinking skills and ethical decision-making abilities.
Yep. It sounds like you're moving beyond rote memorization of rules
Right.
and into a deeper understanding of the principles behind those rules.
That's the goal. We want employees to internalize these values and apply them in their day-to-day work, even when faced with difficult situations.
So we've talked about cybersecurity and anti-bribery.
Yeah.
Are there any specific industries where compliance training is even more critical?
While those two areas are important across all industries, there are certainly some where the stakes are even higher.
I'm thinking of industries like healthcare and finance, where there's a lot of sensitive information at stake.
You're exactly right. In healthcare, you have HIPAA regulations,
Right.
which are incredibly strict when it comes to protecting patient privacy. A single violation can result in hefty fines and reputational damage.
And in finance,
Yeah.
there's a whole web of regulations aimed at preventing money laundering, insider trading, and other financial crimes.
Yeah.
The consequences for noncompliance can be severe, both for the individuals involved and the institutions they represent. Precisely.
Yeah.
In these industries, compliance training isn't just a nice to have.
Yeah.
It's an absolute necessity.
Right.
And it needs to be tailored to the specific requirements of each industry.
Right.
Healthcare professionals need to understand how to properly handle patient records. And financial institutions need robust systems to detect and prevent suspicious transactions.
It sounds like in these high-stakes industries,
Right.
compliance training is about much more than just following the rules.
Yeah.
It's about protecting people's lives, their finances, and their well-being.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Okay.
Compliance is about ethics, integrity, and responsibility. It's about doing the right thing even when no one is watching.
Okay, so we've discussed how crucial compliance training is in specific industries. But what about different roles within a company?
Yeah.
Are there certain positions where compliance is even more critical?
Absolutely. Some roles inherently carry a higher level of compliance risk.
Yeah, I'm thinking of executives and managers, for example. They're the ones setting the tone and making sure the company is operating ethically and legally.
Yes, those roles are definitely key.
Right.
Executives need a deep understanding of the compliance landscape, and they have to ensure the company has the resources and systems in place to comply with all applicable laws and regulations.
And managers need to be able to translate those high-level requirements into clear expectations for their teams. They're the ones on the front lines, making sure that compliance is woven into the fabric of everyday operations.
That's right. But it's not just about the people at the top. Even entry-level employees can play a vital role in compliance. Everyone needs to understand the company's policies and procedures. And they need to feel empowered to speak up if they see something that doesn't seem right. So it's really about creating a culture of compliance that permeates the entire organization.
Exactly.
It's not just a top-down mandate. It's about everyone taking ownership and understanding that compliance is a shared responsibility.
You've summed it up perfectly. Compliance can't be something that's just talked about during annual training sessions. It needs to be embedded in the DNA of the company.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We've explored real-world examples of compliance training in action, from cybersecurity to anti-bribery and corruption. And we've seen how different industries and roles face unique challenges.
They do.
But I have a feeling there's still more to uncover.
There is.
Especially when it comes to avoiding common pitfalls and ensuring that training actually sticks.
You're right. There's always more to learn. In our final part, we'll delve into some of those pitfalls to avoid when designing compliance training. And we'll discuss how to measure the effectiveness of your program to ensure it's making a real difference. We're back for the final part of our compliance training deep dive. And I have to say, I'm feeling a lot more informed about this topic than I was when we started, but I'm also starting to see the potential pitfalls. It's easy to imagine creating a program that's just a check-the-box exercise. Where people click through slides, ace a quiz they can easily cheat on, and then promptly forget everything they just learned.
That's a common concern, and unfortunately, it happens all too often. One of the biggest traps is creating training that's dry, generic. and totally irrelevant to people's actual job.
It's like those safety videos they make you watch on airplanes.
Exactly.
Everyone just tunes them out
Right,
because they feel so impersonal and disconnected from reality.
Yeah, no one wants to feel like they're wasting their time.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap? We've talked about engagement relevance, tailoring to different roles. What else is there?
Well, first off, avoid information overload.
Right.
Don't try to cram every single compliance rule and regulation into one massive training session. People will just get overwhelmed and tune out.
Makes sense.
It's far more effective to focus on a few key areas
Right.
and really drive those points home.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly.
And I bet breaking the information down into bite-sized chunks helps too.
Absolutely. Use clear, concise language. Avoid technical jargon. And, consider incorporating visuals, scenarios, interactive elements to make the content more engaging.
So it's kind of like writing a good podcast script.
Exactly.
Keep it short, sweet, and to the point.
There you go.
Another pitfall to avoid, I think, is neglecting to update your training regularly.
Oh, that's a big one.
The world of compliance is constantly changing.
Always.
New regulations emerge, new risks appear.
All the time.
And company policies evolve. Your training materials need to keep pace with those changes.
Yes, they do.
Otherwise, you risk teaching people outdated information that could actually get them into trouble.
Exactly.
Not good.
Not good at all. And finally, don't underestimate the power of reinforcement. Compliance training shouldn't be a one-time event.
Right.
It's an ongoing process that requires regular reminders, refreshers, and opportunities to apply what's been learned.
It's like learning a new language.
Yes.
You can't just take a few classes and expect to be fluent.
Right.
You need to immerse yourself in the language.
Right.
Practice regularly.
Right.
Find ways to use it in real-life situations.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
And just like with language learning, there are all sorts of ways to reinforce compliance training.
Okay.
Quizzes, games, real-world scenarios, even just informal conversations with colleagues.
Right.
All of these can help keep the concepts top of mind and make sure people are actually applying what they've learned.
Okay. This is all great advice for creating engaging and effective training.
Yeah.
But how do we actually measure whether it's working?
Right.
Is it just about tracking completion rates?
Completion rates are important, of course.
Yeah.
They tell us who's gone through the training,
Right.
but they don't tell us how much they've actually absorbed or whether it's changed their behavior. We need to dig a little deeper.
So how do we do that? I get that completion rates are one piece of the puzzle. But how do we know if people are truly applying what they've learned? That seems way harder to measure.
It's definitely more challenging, but it's not impossible.
Okay.
One approach is to track the number of compliance incidents reported.
Okay.
If you see a decrease in incidents after implementing a new training program, that's a good sign that people are recognizing and reporting potential issues.
That makes sense. What about using data to pinpoint areas where the training might be falling short?
Absolutely. You can analyze quiz results, survey responses, even conduct audits to see if employees are following procedures correctly. This data can help you identify any knowledge gaps or areas where the training needs to be strengthened.
So it's about using data to continuously evaluate and improve the program.
Yes.
And I imagine gathering feedback from employees is important too.
Absolutely. You could use surveys, focus groups, or even just informal conversations to gather qualitative data on how employees perceive the training.
Okay.
Are they finding it engaging? Do they feel more confident in their ability to comply with the rules? This feedback can provide valuable insights for refining your approach.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I've gone from feeling intimidated by compliance training to seeing it as a powerful tool for creating a more ethical, responsible, and resilient organization.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, effective compliance training is an investment, not an expense.
Right.
It's about protecting your company, your employees, and your reputation. And when done right, it can even be a source of competitive advantage.
So to wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
Compliance training, when done right, is about empowering people, not burdening them with rules.
Okay.
It's about fostering a culture of integrity, understanding the why behind the rules, and equipping employees to make ethical decisions in their day-to-day work.
On that note, I think it's time for us to sign off.
Okay.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. How can you apply the principles we've discussed today to evaluate the compliance training you encounter in your own work? Or even suggest improvements within your organization?
That's a great question. We encourage you to continue exploring this topic. And to see compliance training not as a chore, but as an opportunity to learn, grow, and contribute to a more ethical and responsible workplace.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into compliance training. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay compliant.